Hi, I'm Lee Chantel from VivaLaVegan.net and I'm in Seattle as part of my US adventures. Today I'm here with Josh Harper. How long have you been a vegan for?
I'm going on almost 15 years now.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And what made you decide to be a vegan in the first place?
You know, it was actually a really long process and kind of a sad story.
Oh, share, go for it.
I grew up in Oregon, and when I was about 15 years old, there was a group there called the Oregon Christians Alliance. They were trying to pass a law called Measure 9 that would make it legal for people to discriminate against homosexuals, to fire them from their jobs, and so on. And so it was getting a lot of media attention at the time, and a lot of Nazi skinheads saw it as an issue that they could recruit around. So they started sort of pouring into the state, and at that time I was working with this group called Coalition for Human Dignity. Our offices got firebombed. It had gotten really crazy. Anyway, one day me and a friend of mine were walking on the University of Oregon campus, and we saw a OCA protest going on.
What's that stand for?
Oregon Christian Alliance, the group trying to pass the law. So anyway, we'd gone up to their protest, and as a counter-protest, we'd kissed in front of them. That night, as I was heading home, though, what we didn't know is that we'd been spotted by skinheads, and they followed us. I got jumped and beaten up pretty bad. I was really scared to go home because I had a father who was really homophobic, and I didn't want to tell him why I'd been beaten up. When I finally did manage to get into the house late that night, I saw my father out on the back deck, and he was beating the dog that I lived with. And so I made this connection, though, that even though, you know, my dog Max couldn't speak English or do math, he could certainly suffer, and his sense of dignity and freedom was being harmed in the same way that mine had earlier. And so that's what kind of started the wheels turning.
Definitely.
And you know, from there I went vegetarian, and it was a long climb to veganism for me, but that's what started it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's pretty full on, isn't it? What do you think are the positive things about veganism?
Well, veganism was definitely one of the best decisions that I ever made. It allowed me to, on a everyday basis, at every meal, it allowed me to do something positive each and every single day.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think also, though, that because it got me reading about so much and made me aware of such a tremendous amount of oppression in the world, it spurred me to action, and that's been really rewarding. You know, going out and actually trying to confront these industries, has given me a sense of pride, I think, in many ways.
And people may know of you from the Shack 7 case. Did you want to speak about that today and tell us how you got involved with that in the beginning and what happened?
Certainly. I used to work down in Mill Valley, California, at the In Defense of Animals chapter down there. They were running a campaign against Procter & Gamble's animal testing. And so anyway, when the PETA footage first broke from Huntington Life Sciences laboratory out in East Millstone, New Jersey, I was right there when it came in, because Procter & Gamble was were the people contracting the testing in that footage. I saw it and I was just horrified. I wanted to do something, but it was on the other coast, and I don't know, but I tried to keep up with what was going on. When everything first started coming to the U.S. in 2001, I decided that I was going to get involved, and so we started a chapter of Shack here in Seattle, and started organizing protests locally, and I just kind of went from there. It took me all across the country. Actually, though, my home ended up getting raided by a joint terrorism task force.
Wow.
I was arrested by the Department of Homeland Security, and eventually convicted on 2 conspiracy counts and spent 3 years in prison.
For doing what in particular?
For speaking engagements that I was doing where I was advocating forms of electronic civil disobedience, like email blockading or black faxing.
That's where you just fax something off, so they use all their toner and that to places, is that right?
Essentially, yes. Yeah. You take 3 sheets of black paper and you tape them into one long strip. It starts to feed through a fax machine, and you tape the front end to the back end, so it runs in a continuous loop.
Yeah.
Not for participating in tactics like that, but for speaking about tactics like that. I was labeled a terrorist, and sentenced to federal prison time.
Wow, that's pretty intense. That's one of the things I've noticed since I've been in America is that
Animal Enterprise.
Animal Enterprise, Terrorism Act. That's pretty intense, isn't it? And the fact that anyone just speaking out about things that they feel passionate about can get into some serious trouble for.
The law is so incredibly vague because it doesn't really require that illegal activity takes place. It doesn't require that the illegal activity that does take place really rises to the level of terrorism. There doesn't have to be arsons or bombings or shootings. In our case, again, the black faxes were the illegal nature. I mean, that was the crime. And then because the potential to cause more than $10,000 worth of damage was there, they said we were guilty.
Yeah.
And so, it is quite frightening. A number of boycott activities could certainly fall within the scope of that law. I'm really worried what we're going to see coming up in the next few years because the Justice Department under President Obama has actually gotten worse than under the time of Bush. They are prosecuting these things more heavily than Bush did. Sentencing has gotten worse under Obama, and so I'm nervous for a lot of the ongoing cases right now and what they will mean to the movement.
From what you've learned, what sort of advice can you give to people in similar situations or that are thinking of doing something like that?
It's difficult to give advice. One thing that I would say is to really look at your efforts and see where your energy is best spent. Speeches that I gave, I'm not really certain what their impact was. I'm not really certain that they accomplished a whole lot, but the more direct organizing that I did, actually putting together protests and things of that nature, I think had a greater impact. So perhaps I should have just focused in that direction more. I don't know that it would have kept me out of prison, but maybe it would have made the prison time more worthwhile.
Yeah. Maybe just, utilize the strengths that people have better. Yeah. And you run a podcast with another friend, Rex Ray. And it's called veganthreat.com. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Me and my friend Rex had been hanging out for a couple months and looking for a project to do together. And Vegan Threat came up. It's pretty eclectic. It doesn't have one single format or one very clear, direct goal. But it's a fun show to do. We talk about a range of issues involving animals, animal rights movement, and veganism. Some episodes we have interviews. And
what other things are you aiming for in the future with that?
Well, I'm aiming to do better interviews in the future, for one, to just, as an interview subject, perform better. I think that's...
very well, Josh.
I want to grow my skills as a podcaster, I suppose. But I think ultimately with the show, I want to provide something that comes out very regularly that discusses issues of strategy and philosophy.
Yep.
I think that right now there's not really a whole lot of that in the United States.
Thank you so much, Josh, for taking the time out to speak to us today.
All right.
And is there a website people can go to have a look? There's veganthreat.com for your podcast. Thank you very much, and have a look at vivalavegan.net for more interviews. Thank you.